content presented in this podcast is based on real events and may contain graphic descriptions of violence, sensitive topics, and explicit language that may be triggering, offensive, or sensitive subjects to some viewers and listeners. Discretion is advised. The purpose of this podcast is to explore and discuss true crime cases for entertainment and educational purposes only. This podcast does not intend to glorify or sensationalize crime, but rather aims to analyze and understand the complexities of human behavior in the criminal justice system. We encourage listeners to approach this content with empathy, critical thinking, respect for the victims and their families.
What if your next road trip took you straight into the shadow of America's most infamous serial killers? Gas stations where they fueled up, motels where they hid in plain sight or did their dirty deeds, neighborhoods that will never forget their names. Now, from sleepy suburbs to forgotten highways, America's most infamous serial killers left behind more than just headlines. They left behind landmarks. Because tonight we're unfolding the pages, the Serial Killer Travel Guide Across America, a chilling journey into the real locations tied to real murders. So ask yourself, would you walk where Ted Bundy walked? Would you sleep where Richard Ramirez once hid? Every town has its secrets, but most towns want to keep it that way. It's time to start the show. Let's hit it. Hi, welcome to another episode of Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot. I am your host, Winnie Schrader. And yes, I am back in my seat. I am back from Chicago. Dave is still back there, still dealing with his father's estate stuff. And obviously, he's also on the road doing events. But I still want to thank you guys from the bottom of the whole Schrader family's hearts. Thank you for all the love and support that you have shown us these past couple of weeks since his passing, and even before that. You guys have been huge supporters of us, and we thank you for that. But tonight's episode, we're going to take a true crime tour across America. One eerie roadside stop after the next. Now, we're going to be diving into serial killer location, landmarks, things like that are infamous with these names and victims. Now, this isn't fiction. These are real locations. Now, one fictional location that almost became a true crime story on Dateline was my shirt. I have my famous Wally World shirt on. The moose out front should have told you. But if you've ever wondered what it's like to walk in the footsteps of these murderers, they call it kind of dark tourism. And I guess it is a thing. I mean, you have the Charlie Manson murder tours in LA and things like that. So it is a thing. And it is actually a fast growing trend right now, even overseas with tours. But I have authored Johnny Trevisani on, who wrote this book, and he has kind of that offbeat humor, which I really love. And he's been writing books for many years, and in his spare time, he is also a musician. But I want to welcome to the show, Johnny. Welcome to the show, Johnny.
Hi, Winnie. Thanks for having me on, and my condolences to your family.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was a tough one. That was for sure unexpected, but you know, Jim wore this shirt and it exuded everything he was about a person. He said, the shirt says, "I smoke cigars and I know things." And that was him. Okay, so back to the book, which I will have a link for that in today's show notes along with your website. And you guys can pre-order the Kindle now. I suggest you do that. Please rate and review it. Once you read it, rate and review it. So that way we can start pumping out more books like this. Because this one, I'm definitely going to have to read. And now I feel like I'm definitely going to have to take a road trip. So what brought you to write a travel guide of serial killers across America?
Well, I'm a curious guy, and but I also have a kind of a different sense of humor. So to me, those things fit. And I was reading about the Gilgo murders in Long Island, and I was like, I've been to Long Island a bunch of times, but I've never been to Gilgo Beach. I was like, wonder where that is. And so then I looked at it, I was like, oh, you know what? I actually was close to that. I was like, it'd be kind of cool is to have it to research different areas in the country where serial killers went. I don't feature wrecks in the book, but it's kind of like all these different areas within the country you can then visit. And I thought that would be a fun way of doing it. And I also do it in a light-hearted, kind of a whimsical format. So the idea would be like kind of like a real travel guide back from the 60s or something, but to make the dark subject a little bit lighter.
Yes.
But yeah, so that was the approach to it. And so it led me down I guess I'm supposed to say journey. It would be kind of redundant with the book, but it led me on an interesting journey, discovering new serial killers that I'm not familiar with, which was kind of cool. And rediscovering old ones. Because of course you're going to have to go to Milwaukee, but for Jeffrey Dahmer, but that apartment building's no longer there, but you can get the sense of it there. So, I just thought it would be fun. It would be a fun take on both travel guides and serial killers.
Yeah, well, I just did a show a couple weeks back, and we were talking with Dalen Spratt, and we were talking about Jonestown in Guyana. Mm-hmm. And when I was looking up stuff about it, I realized that they refurbished the sign that says, "Welcome to Jonestown." And people can go there now and take tours of the area of Jonestown where there was a mass self-harming event where over 300 people died. And I'm like, but it's a thing. And it just, and there are times where I'm like, oh, it'd be kind of cool to go see Al Capone's jail cell or stuff like that. But some of the stuff I find kind of odd. Like when I was in Chicago, when I was leaving, I noticed there's a memorial highway section named after Jim Dahmer. So it's the Jim Dahmer Memorial Highway. Now, nothing against Jim Dahmer, but I don't understand why they would want to memorialize the father of a serial killer. And then, can you imagine that your address? Ugh.
Who would want to deliver on that address?
I'd get a P.O. box.
That'd be the safest way to do it. At least you wouldn't stink. You wouldn't have a weird odor on you.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just like
that is a very interesting thing to find out that of all people to name a street, Jeffrey Dahmer's dad.
But I think adding the humor element, and I have a dark sense of humor. I find humor in the most disparaging, desperate, just down in the pits of hell. I'll find a way to laugh or make somebody laugh. This is how I deal with stuff like that. But it's strange that. How do I want to put this? Serial killer things that have happened in our past are part of our history, part of Americana. I mean, Charlie Manson, Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy. It's part of the fabric of America. It's part of our history.
Part of our lexicon of our
right.
culture.
Right. I mean, we have our scars, and that's part of it. But adding that humor aspect, I think helps. Yeah, it kind of pulls that veil down a bit people kind of have that guard down. But I think it helps people learn better. And the education part of it, they retain that more. They're not looking at just the gore and the horror of it all. You know, the locations. Why was that location important? How does that location play a part in our history? Things like that. Because in American history, I mean, you can't just look at serial killers and say they're the bad ones. I mean, we've had
right.
wars. We've had hundreds of thousands of people die for stuff like in violence.
Right.
It's like, these are the only ones you're gonna, shame. Come on.
I mean,
but
I think we both understand the psychology, right? We both understand the psychology of serial killers, and that, it's so antithetical of everyone's normal thinking. I go to the store and I buy things, and then I come home and I cook. Like, I wouldn't go there and go, oh, I'm going to kill you, and then I'm going to bury your body in a ditch. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And so I think that's why that's why as of late, in the past, decade or so, it's just the interest in serial killers has grown significantly. On Netflix and Hulu, you're going to see something on there related to serial killers, because it's ingrained in our society. It's so horrific. And serial killers are not spree killers. They're not people that just show up and just start killing people. These are people that, like BKK killer, right? He was a deacon in a church, and he used to work every day. He would go to work every day, but he had weird hobbies. So it was those types of things that these are part of your community, and that's why it's even scarier and a little bit more, interesting, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And, now putting together the book, obviously, I mean, there's all those really well-known locations. You have Herb Baumeister's Fox Hollow Farm. You have, Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment building, which they had tore down. They were supposed to put a playground and a memorial there, but it still hasn't happened yet. But hopefully someday. It's just an empty lot still. Those kind of places. Obviously, you want to cover those in your book. Was there something in any of those locations that you found that may not be well known to the public that you were kind of blown back by? Like, whoa, I didn't know that.
Well, I didn't know about Honolulu, right? I didn't know that there was the Honolulu Strangler. And I thought,
I didn't either.
Beautiful area of the United States. You think, of all places, you're going to do it there. Like, you're really what's going to go on there? Like, it kind of took me back there. They were like, they never really arrested the person. They arrested one person. His name was Howard Gay, and he was never convicted about those things. But he was suspected as being the Honolulu killer. And I just thought, of all places, like, there was places where he would find bodies on beaches, and like, it's super weird. Like, these are beautiful places in the world, and it's an island. Like, you have to go to that island. It isn't like you're just going to wander some way, going from like Nevada to North New Mexico or something, like, you're just going to drive somewhere. This is a beautiful location, and yet you still have the horrific experience of a serial killer who was there. I was kind of surprised about that, but that was in the heyday of the 80s. So.
Wow, I didn't even know that. Yeah, that's in Paradise. Why? How could you be so upset and angry or whatever to do that in Paradise?
Right?
I would just be sitting on the beach and be like, nobody bothered me for the rest of my life.
Chill with, right? There's so many
what's the angst there?
Right.
Go have a Mai Tai. Chill out, dude.
He was Oahu was where he was known to dump bodies. Like, people were strangled there. And I'm saying he because that's who it was attributed to, but they really never found the person.
Wow.
Have you ever felt like something or someone was trying to tell you something? That inner nudge, that quiet whisper from the universe. with intuition sharpened by years of spiritual connection and a deep-rooted gift. Winnie Schrader delivers readings that are compassionate, insightful, and shockingly accurate. Whether you're facing a crossroads healing from heartache, or just curious what the cards reveal, Winnie creates a safe, sacred space to explore your journey. This isn't fortune cookie fluff. This is honest, intuitive guidance from someone who's helped hundreds find clarity, closure, and confidence. If you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. Book your session now at lovelotustarot.com and take control of your journey. That's lovelotustarot.com. Winnie's sessions are personal, powerful, and often life-changing. That's lovelotustarot.com.
Now, was there any location or a killer that you came across that you had no idea about, that you were just kind of like, oh my God?
Well, yeah, I mean, there was a killer so there was actually two killers in Alexandria, Virginia, and one was super unique. I never knew about it, and his name was Charles Severance, and this is relatively recent, like from the year 2000, early 2000s area. And he was known as the grudge killer because he had a grudge with not necessarily people, a little bit. There was one person he had a grudge with, but he just hated government. So most of it was related to his hatred of government, and somebody represented the government there, and he would kill them. He would literally just knock on their door, they would open the door, and he would kill them, and then he would leave. And there's a fun fact about him is that he ran for mayor of Alexandria, and he also ran for Congress in Alexandria. Now, if you've ever seen pictures of this guy, he would be unique in Congress. Let's put it that way. He looks like, I'm trying to how I would describe it, but if Santa Claus went on a crack binge, that's kind of what he would look like, right?
Interesting. Oh, I can't wait to look this guy up. Oh, God.
Yeah. So he, and in Alexandria, if you've ever been there, it's a very quaint city, and you think two in this place, two people,
right?
There were two murderers there. That I was like, okay, I did not see that. There was another person named Monty Rissell, and that was back in the 70s. But and I'm thinking, what about Alexandria is going to create two serial killers? I mean, I'm from Philly, and we're known for a couple serial killers. One of which is in the book. One I didn't leave in the book. And and during the 70s in Philly, David Lynch even would talk about how it makes sense.
Yeah.
It was
I mean, when you live in the city, that makes sense. You're deal with poverty and drugs and crime.
It's a beautifully quaint city, beautifully quaint. Like it's cobblestone, cobblestone streets. I mean, really. So it was just kind of interesting to find that place as being part of it. And in fact, the Monty Rissell was featured in Mindhunter. If you ever saw that show.
Oh yes, love Mindhunter.
Right. So yeah, I mean, as I started to research it, because I mean, like I've been to places, and then you just start going into the rest of the country, and you start researching, and it's like, well, I didn't really see that,
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you're going to go to Washington. You're going to go and you're going to see Bundy, but it's also difficult to attribute a serial killer to a location because they're not necessarily attributed to a location in many cases. Like Bundy, killed a bunch of people in Florida. It wasn't just in the Pacific Northwest. So I put them in the Pacific Northwest. We have our own people down in Florida. There's other people we can work on.
You'll get your shot. Hang on. Volume 2's coming out.
Yeah, right.
God.
But yeah, I mean, it's meant to, if you were to go state by state, you can just travel down and visit these places and you can see where they hung out, or they dropped bodies, or were born.
Now, did you go through all 50 states? Or
not all 50 states, because, Montana is kind of open. There's some states that were kind of not, I wasn't really going to go by state, but I was just going to see where it took me. And in many cases, It didn't hit all of the states. It hit many,
Yeah.
Like,
I know of one here in Minnesota, and I did cover on one of my very first ones. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, the Weepy Voice Killer. But I actually went to the locations where
Paul Stefani, right? Yeah, he's in the book.
Yep.
Paul Stefani, yeah.
And I've been at that diner that victim, the girl, his first victim, that she got off the bus and went across the street to have a bite to eat, and he was there, and he's like, "Oh, I'll show you around," and you're new here to Minnesota, because she was originally from Wisconsin. And she didn't even make it here 24 hours. But I went to the locations where I was just like, yeah, this is eerie. This is just weird, but kind of cool at the same time, because it's almost like you get that tangible touch on history. That's why we go to museums. That's why we go, to, tour old mansions and things like that. We want to feel tangible to that era or that time. Whatever event or whatever happened there. It's just, I guess it's a place for us to feel tangible and connected to it. And
100%.
it is odd, but we are human, and the human condition is we just like weird stuff. So it's just,
I think it's kind of the same line if you like a drive-by accident. You're going to rubberneck. You're going to look. Like, as much as you don't want to look, you're going to look. And that's kind of what it is when you go from city to city, right? You're looking at like, maybe I shouldn't, but I'm really going to look. Like I'm pretty interested in this, right? I mean, I remember when I was pretty young, there was it's not in the book and it's related to a mob hit, but it was a mob hit. And it was like, they blew up this building, they blew up this house. And my brother grabbed me and goes, "We're going to go." And that's what we did. We went over and we looked at their blown up house. That's essentially what it is. You have this connection to history. You want to see it.
Right. Okay. Well, the book is A Serial Killer's Travel Guide Across America, your coast to coast tour of terror. Yes, it'll be available. You can pre-order it now on Kindle. Now, when is the book going to be available?
So early August. It'll be available in early August in all formats. It'll be in Kindle, and it'll be in print and in audio.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, like I said, this is a definite road trip book that you need to have in the car. I could have used this going to Chicago, probably. Nice. You have some other books that are currently out as well. What are some of those books and topics?
So I have one book. It's called Serial Killer Quote of the Day. And it is what it sounds like. It's biographies and quotes around those biographies with fun facts.
Interesting.
Because what was interesting about that was, you hear the word in words. It's pretty interesting, like the psychology behind their thinking, and that's really what the impetus of that book was. We broke it up as a fun day, like a day calendar type of book kind of thing.
Cool.
Quote a day. That was like, that's kind of what they designed the book, and I think that's pretty funny. So
that is hilarious.
So, people immediately look up their birth date. Who's on my birthday?
Everybody does that when you get a calendar. What puppy is going to be in the month of August for my birthday? What was one of your favorite quotes that you
the quote that started that whole book was a quote from Jeffrey Dahmer. And the quote was, my refrigerator broke and the meat spoiled. And that was because the police arrived at his apartment because of the stench that was coming from there. And the people that were in the area were complaining about it. And so just think about that mindset. Like, he's got body parts in the, heads and body parts and everything in there. And he was cogent enough to say, oh, I'm going to cover it by just saying my refrigerator broke and the meat spoiled, right? That's pretty wild. Yep. So that just sort of brought me into like into that world and just researching a lot of that. That was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, like the neighbors, like she would sit there. She said that she was constantly spraying air freshener because it just, and when you're in an apartment building, you have shared vents. So somebody on the first floor cooking curry, you're going to smell it in your apartment, maybe 5 doors down.
Most definitely.
That's what happens. Yeah, that's what happens in an apartment building. Oh God, can you imagine just smelling that? Ew.
Right? I mean, that's why I thought that quote was so gruesome and so telling, and that's what just started me that whole book for me. Like, it's gruesome. It's a gruesome thought, knowing the truth behind it. And
yeah, I know.
When you hear other ones, and you hear how, like, a quote from Ed Kemper, who was one of my prototypical serial killers, his thing was, actually, blood is a pain in the ass, and you think, right? So that's what actually blood is a pain in the ass. It was a quote from him because as he was practicing on the co-eds he was killing, he was trying to figure out what to do with blood's getting everywhere. Like, can you imagine that line of thinking? Like, oh, actually, blood is a
so messy. Jeez.
Yeah, right. Jeez, how am I going to get this
paper
out?
Towels. Clorox wipe, something. It's like, yeah, I know. And it's like, that's their mindset in those moments. And you're like, that's what you're worried about right now, dude. I mean, you have worse problems than this.
I mean, Kemper, if you think about Kemper, he was the prototypical serial killer. Like, he knew what he was going to do. And he was methodical, and he wanted to kill his mother in a certain way. Like, he really wanted to do it the right way. He didn't want to just do it, the wrong way. He wanted to kill her and do things to her body and her head and her, that he wanted to make sure he did it correctly. And so he practiced on that.
He wanted to humiliate her. That's what he wanted to do.
Yeah, another quote from him was that, he said he put her vocal cords down the garbage disposal, and he said, but I can still hear her talking.
I know. It's like, maybe that's how they get through dealing with what they did as humor. I don't know.
Right?
Yeah, she's still yelling at me. Ugh.
Right. His mother was really pretty brutal to him.
Yeah, I do want to do an episode on Ed Kemper, because he was like, I guess if you want to look at it on the surface, he's kind of like a of us.
And gave himself up, and they didn't believe him, right? They didn't believe him, and then he went over the list of other kills that he did, and then they caught him. But he was finished. Like, he achieved what he wanted to do. There was no need for him to do it, so he was ready. I mean, that's what a serial killer.
Yeah, it's just he was an odd duck. But Mindhunter, speaking of, that was kind of their main case study on developing the criminal psychology for serial killers. And then they would call it like succession killing or sequence killing, and then eventually serial killer stuck. But well, thank you so much for coming on. This was. I like taking a little bit of humor and interjecting it with dark. It's not that we're making fun or thinking any ill will against victims. This is how, and honestly, if you really want it, if you are a family member of a victim, it's almost like if you want the education to get out there and you want people to really understand what happened, sometimes you have to cater it to your audience, and some people, this is how they deal with it. This is one of my ways of dealing with something horrible and horrific happening is humor. And, but thank you. I mean, like this is a great book, and, and not having all those gruesome aspects in the book, this could be something for, teenagers or, things that because I know when I was getting into high school, I was all in true crime. I've been, I did the whole Paradise Lost series, and that was what really triggered me into true crime. And like that would be a destination that I know a lot of people go to is the West Memphis 3 in West Memphis, Arkansas. That location at Robin Hood Hills. It's a huge spot for people to go to and visit and, kind of get that tangible connection to that location for that particular crime. So, and it's really cool that you put a book out like this because, especially if you're on a family road trip, not everybody wants to go see the big ball of twine. So if you're like me, and I'm going to be like, I'm going to go over here and take a look at the Charlie Manson Museum, you go over there. You know what I mean? Like, it's something that I think people can enjoy traveling and like, hey, get the book. And if you know you're going to a state with one of these locations in it, go visit it. Take some pictures. Say, hey.
Yeah, like when you go to LA and you want to go to the Glasgow Park where Richard Ramirez did most of his work, you're there, like you can see it. So.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. Again, the book, The Serial Killer Travels Guide Across America, Your Coast to Coast Tour of Terror by John. Do you go by Johnny or John? I mean, like, is Johnny?
Yeah.
Oh, so, okay. And I'll have a link for that in today's description to pre-order the Kindle book, but it will be coming out in all formats. So just keep your eye on it, pre-order it, do whatever you got to do. And once you get it, please rate and review. And you have a website as well. What is your website?
JohnnyTrevisani.com.
Oh, perfect. And yeah, check out that other book too. And I'll have a link for that book too, the quote one. That's another book now I have to buy from you.
Well, I appreciate it.
I have a whole shelf of write another book. I'm going to the Bahamas. Anything cool and crazy happen there? So now with all this talk and travel, why don't we go visit our felonious friend, good old Florida man?
Florida man, hell yeah!
Now, on July 14th, a Florida man is behind bars on a felony charge for a pair of Walmart sex toy heists. Records show Jeffrey LaForge, 40, was arrested Friday on a pair of theft counts for which he was being held in lieu of a $10,000 bond. How many sex toys was there? Now, on two separate occasions, police charged LaForge swiped a variety of adult toys from a Walmart in South Pasadena and Pinellas County City. Store security's cameras recorded LaForge removing items from their packaging and then departing the Walmart without paying for the pleasure devices. Now, the stolen goods were worth $280, which included a $31.44 tush toy. Yeah, a tush toy. Saying it makes me laugh. And a $14.98 oral stroker. Okay, that's hard for my Minnesota mouth to say. Oral stroker are listed on the police report. LaForge is also accused of stealing a Reese's peanut butter ice cream costing $3.98. It's unclear whether the sex toys were intended for personal use or for resale, so the lack of packaging might cause prospective buyers concern that the items might be used. Now, since the merchandise was valued at less than $1,000, the sex toy thefts would normally be charged as misdemeanors. However, owing to LaForge's history of multiple theft convictions, the counts have been enhanced to felonies. On a related note, who knew that America's favorite beloved retailer sold sex toys like that? It reminds me, I gotta put in my Walmart order. Now, this speeding, reckless motorcyclist is no king of the world. A motorcyclist was busted yesterday for speeding and reckless driving after a Florida cop spotted him riding hands-free with his arms outstretched like he was Jack on the Titanic, according to the arrest affidavit. Damon Heckens, 34, was going over 105 miles per hour when he mimicked the Leonardo DiCaprio's "I'm the king of the world" pose as he sped Sunday morning down U.S. Route 19. Now, driving at 55 miles per hour with his other traffic that was present, Heckens had both hands off the handlebars when Corporal Jacob Rolston of the Pinellas Park Police Department observed him traveling at excessive and dangerous speeds. Now, Heckens was arrested on 2 misdemeanor charges and booked into county jail. The St. Petersburg resident spent about 6 hours in custody before being freed on a $300 bond. Heckens, who drives a Kawasaki Ninja ZXCR, has posted Instagram videos showing him weaving and white lining through highway traffic. Now, in late May, he uploaded a photo of his motorcycle, which he can approach at 175 miles per hour, with the caption, "Finally gave her a bath and installed the new windscreen. In love with this bike." Now, Heckens has previously cited for driving on an unregistered vehicle and driving a vehicle with an expired registration. You know, I hope he gets his license revoked. And if he's going to do this dumb shit on a motorcycle, like, I hope that bike treats him the way Rose treated Jack at the end of the movie. There was enough room on that damn door, Rose. Enough room. Now, this one's an interesting story, but only a Florida man can pull this one off. A stabbed victim's secret stash was stumbled upon during surgery. A Florida man who cops believe was stabbed in a drug dispute was in surgery when a nurse discovered a glass crack pipe, a lighter, and a tinfoil containing cocaine in his rectum, according to court records. The surprising find occurred earlier this month at St. Petersburg Bayfront Hospital, where Michael O'Neill, 43, had been transported for a knife wound. Now, after being hospitalized for his injuries, O'Neill was booked into jail Friday night for cocaine possession, a felony, possession of drug paraphernalia, a misdemeanor. He was eventually released on bail after posting a $5,500 bond, but he pled not guilty to the charges, which I don't know how you could not plead guilty, right? I don't know. It was in your ass, dude. You put it there. I don't know who else would have put it there. But yeah, so during surgery, could you imagine being the nurse and being like, and another thing too, where was the stab wound and what made her go up there and just like what caused them to even want to dig up there in the first place? Was it sticking out? I don't even know. That's nasty. But yeah, I don't know how he could with a straight face plead not guilty to them. Now, O'Neill pleaded guilty last year to drug possession after a jail strip search turned into 2 baggies containing fentanyl and crack, rocks hidden in the buttocks area. Yeah, so the police know that this guy likes to pack the old pucker, as they say. But you would think I would be so terrified. Like, if I had to suitcase anything, I'd be so terrified that the package is going to open. I'm going to die of an overdose, because that is known to happen, especially with these drug mules coming from, South American stuff. They'll like take condoms and pack it with drugs and then swallow it. I'm like, can you imagine having that sitting over your head until you can actually extract it from your body? Gross. Do you think they have his picture up at the hospital that says known to carry in bulk? Well, again, thank you guys so much for joining me. And again, just follow us. You can follow Dave at the Paranormal 60 on YouTube, and you can follow me. And I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to grow my audience so that way I can branch off and start doing this as a career. Since my health ailments kind of keep me homebound at times, it's hard to have a job outside the house. So I would love to make this my career, but I need your help. So if you could subscribe to my channel, if you know anybody who is a true crime junkie, share my stuff with them, have them subscribe. And pretty soon, like I said, it's been in the works, but apparently life has different plans for me, but I will be getting up that paid subscription content. I have been working on it, but like, every time I get a little bit ahead, something kind of knocks me 2 steps back. So bear with me. But thank you guys again. I hope to see you all next week.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot. And until our next case, my armchair detectives, stay safe, stay vigilant, and stay aware. I'll see you right here next week on Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot.